this heinous crime is going to be investigated by not only the Department of Justice, but the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense has decided to loan the Department of Justice its services in finding and apprehending this person. It is possible that something similar to a black sky satellite would be used in finding this person. Because mind you, people use disguises, people use all kinds of ways of evading the law. So you have to use high-end technology to apprehend fugitives, especially dangerous fugitives. So it's possible that a country like Black Sky could be contacted by the Department of Defense and given this guy's tendencies, his personal data, his vital statistics, his work history, everything. It's possible that a satellite company, whether it's an outer space satellite company or an interspace satellite company, mind you, there are satellites in outer space, but there are also satellites in our realm right now that are essentially stationary satellites that can be used to locate a person and generate their image and send their image to law enforcement with their exact location. So Black Sky will assist in things like that. The Internet of Things, that's something most people already know about. Your refrigerator, your air conditioner, your heater, your watch, your bicycle, your car. Non-computer items can connect to the internet now. And what that allows for is it allows for interconnectivity. For example, you can change the temperature of your house from your home or from your work or from your tablet or iPhone or your watch. And you can do lots of things in various non-computer aspects using the Internet of Things model, meaning non-computer items can connect to the internet now. It also makes a person more accessible, which is not a bad thing. You being accessible is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing for your country, your government, typically to have access to your location. It's actually a good thing. People are safer that way. But if your government is using your exact location through your various gadgets to send mobs of harassers to you, some of which are sick or carrying diseases for you, that becomes a crime against humanity. That's the kind of activity that I speak out against. Okay, next we have neural data mining, which is basically harnessing the power of the brain for insights. Neural data mining is a rapidly developing field that uses technologies like artificial neural networks to extract valuable insights and patterns from neural data sources like brain recordings and simulations. Inspired by the brain's structure and powerful tools for tasks like classification, prediction, and pattern recognition, enabling researchers to understand complex relationships in neural information that traditional methods might miss. At its core, neural data mining uses ANNs to analyze neural data and identify hidden patterns and relationships. This involves steps like data acquisition and pre-processing, gathering raw neural data from sources such as animal models, human subjects, or simulations, and preparing it for analysis by cleaning and transforming it into a usable format. Feature extraction and selection includes identifying and selecting relevant features from the pre-processed data that are most informative for the mining task. Model training and optimization. Training ANNs on the prepared data to learn patterns and relationships, optimizing the model's performance through techniques like backpropagation and fine-tuning parameters. Pattern recognition and interpretation. Using the trained ANN to analyze new neural data, identify patterns, and interpret their meaning in a human understandable way. Applications of neural data mining. Neural data mining holds immense potential in areas like healthcare and neuroscience, diagnosing neurological disorders, analyzing neural data to develop new diagnostic tools for conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, developing brain-computer interfaces and neuroprosthetics, allowing individuals to control devices with their thoughts, especially beneficial for those with paralysis or motor disorders. Personalized medicine, tailoring treatment plans based on an individual's neural data and genetic information. Business and finance, customer segmentation and behavior analysis, understanding customer preferences and predicting churn for targeted marketing strategies. Fraud detection, identifying unusual patterns and anomalies in financial transactions to detect and prevent fraud. Security and defense, facial and image recognition, developing advanced surveillance and identification systems. Cybersecurity, detecting unusual patterns in network traffic to identify potential threats and intrusions. So, as you can see from that description, neural data mining is an all-encompassing data collection module. It collects behavior, it collects human data, such as human behaviors, such as their buying behaviors, their psychological behaviors with respect to like health reports, psychology reports, psychiatry reports. It collects data from the criminal justice system. It collects data from people's television watching behaviors, which are recorded now by cable companies, okay? It's not a bad thing. But in the wrong hands, it can be a chaotic thing. You see, just like all the technology here. In the right hands, this kind of technology can change the world for the better. It can make people better. It can make them happier. It can make them more stable. It can make them more useful. But in the wrong hands, as many targeted individuals have unfortunately found out, quote, the hard way, this kind of technology can be used to disrupt and destroy a person's life as well. So if you look at something like data mining, neural data mining, it is a technological wonder, okay? The people who created such a protocol should pat themselves on the back. They definitely have the capacity to contribute to mankind with innovations like this. But they also have to be careful not to become self-absorbed to the point where they can just throw this stuff around and let anybody get their hands on it. Okay, now, neural data mining also is the collection of people's computer habits, which is not a bad thing. Your government should know how you use a computer. Okay? Because some people use computers to do horrible things to other people. Some people use computers to destabilize society and communities. Some people use computer to interact with people who may want to commit heinous crimes somewhere. So the government should know what a person's computer habits are so that it can identify potential threats to society. My computer habits are being monitored. I don't mind. If you are a government official and you've sworn an oath of service to your country and you have been assigned to my computer activity, go right ahead. I welcome it. Because you know what's going to be seen? The truth. And you're going to be able to process the truth, and you're going to be able to identify true statements, and you are going to be able to relay these true statements to your superiors for processing. And eventually, the federal establishment of this country will realize that a mistake has been made and too much power has been given to people who might abuse that power. So, back to neural data mining. It can be used to predict human behavior using a combination of the gathering of all of this person's identifiable data, their vital statistics, and their public records. Echelon. This is a particularly interesting program to me. This is the next program after data mining. This is called Echelon. Echelon is a this is a particularly interesting module to me. And we're going to read its auspices, and I'll tell you why it's particularly interesting to me. And at the 48-minute mark, should this program run over the hour, we will divide it into 2 segments, and this will be part 3, and the next segment will be part 4. So Echelon. The United Kingdom has a newspaper called The Guardian, and The Guardian summarized this program called Echelon as such. It's a global network of electronic spy stations that can eavesdrop on telephones, faxes, and computers. It can even track bank accounts. This information is stored in Echelon computers, which can keep millions of records on individuals. The ability to intercept communications depend on the medium used, be it radio, satellite, microwave, cellular, or fiber optic. During World War II and through the 1950s, high-frequency shortwave radio was used for military and diplomatic communications. And I'll stop there, and I want to say that I am fully aware that a lot of the terminology used in these descriptions is not terminology that the average person hears regularly, and you may not be able to process it right away, but at the end of each term, I will break it down for you. So I'll pick it back up here. And can be intercepted at great distances. Documents leaked by the former NSA contractor Ed Snowden revealed that the Echelon system's collection of satellite data is also referred to as FORNSAT, an abbreviation of Foreign Satellite Collection. Examples of industrial espionage. Now, this is going to be particularly interesting to me because this program that I just read for you, it fell into the wrong hands at some point, and it was being used for industrial espionage, which is basically a way of spying on entrepreneurs' ideas and stealing those ideas, and then you passing those ideas off as your own and making a profit from those ideas. Okay, there was a very notable case of that, which I'm going to read for you here in a second. So in 1999, there was a company called Intercon, which is a German company and a leading manufacturer of wind energy equipment, namely wind turbines, which generate energy. It developed a breakthrough generator for wind turbines. After applying for a U.S. patent, it had learned that Kinetec, an American rival, had submitted an almost identical patent application shortly before. By the statement of a former NSA employee, it was later claimed that the NSA, the National Security Agency, had secretly intercepted and monitored Intercon's data communications and conference calls and passed information regarding the new generator to Kinetec. Now, I'm going to break that down for you real quick because this is important, because this actually happens to a lot of people here in the United States. And some people listening to this may have had something like this happen to you at some time, where you were working on a business idea, or you were working on a business model, or you were working on a book or a novel or a children's toy, or maybe you were working on some other piece of technology, or maybe you were working on a patent for a new type of headset or a new type of book bag, or maybe you're working on a jewelry design or something like that. And before you can get it out to the world, before you can submit it to a major corporation for review or something to that effect, someone comes up with an almost exact identical product to the one you were just working on, and they get it off into the public eye before you. How does something like that happen? It doesn't even just happen with tangible items. It could happen with other intellectual property. Like, for example, you write a song in your basement, and this is a beautiful song you've written. And before you can possibly submit it to your favorite record label for consideration, another artist puts out an almost identical song to the one you were working on before you were able to get yours out there for recognition. How does this happen? It's called industrial espionage, okay? There were corrupt NSA employees that were using the power of the National Security Agency spying information to spy on business products before they were introduced to the public, and sent the blueprints and they sold the blueprints of these business products to other people, so that, they sold the blueprints of these business products to other companies, so these other companies could make that product and get it off before you could get yours off. And there were a lot of writers of novels, a lot of songwriters, a lot of inventors, a lot of entrepreneurs that were sabotaged by that, including this company, Intercon. It had developed a wind turbine, and when they went to go get a U.S. patent for their wind turbine, they realized that an American company had already made an identical product and had already gotten it off before them. That's because this wind turbine, okay, its auspices, its working, its blueprint, everything was already taken from the original business people by the National Security Agency, and that information was sold to a competitor who put the product out first. So it's called stealing somebody else's idea, okay? But you're stealing their idea so you can sell it to somebody else. You're stealing their idea so you can sell the idea to somebody else. Okay? You are hacking their conference calls, you're hacking their computers, you're hacking their calls and messages, you're hacking their templates so you can steal their idea and sell the idea to somebody else. And then the other person who purchases the idea takes it and they get the idea off before you do. Okay? There are movie scripts that were ripped off of somebody else's work by the National Security Agency. Oh yes, you have independent screenwriters who would write movie ideas, and these movie ideas would be stolen by the NSA and sold to a rival scriptwriter, and that rival scriptwriter would make a few edits to it and submit it to a big-time motion picture company as their idea. Okay? Programs like Echelon made that possible. Tempest, what is it? It is a classified program focused on preventing adversaries from intercepting and deciphering classified or sensitive information transmitted by electronic devices. Now, I'm not even going to lie. Like, I'd say maybe 60 seconds ago, a guy that looked like the ripoff of the Ultimate Warrior. You guys remember wrestling back in the 80s? The World Wrestling Federation. This guy looked like an almost identical replica of the Ultimate Warrior, and I'm not talking about in a good way. Okay, I'm talking about in a sleazy way, in a real sort of freeze-dried way. He looked like just sort of a rip-off Ultimate Warrior. He just ran by. He had on those same glasses. He had about shoulder-length hair. He was sweaty from head to toe. He looked like he had oiled himself up before he started running. And he just ran right past me, swinging his arms around. That was a provocation. And since these federal liaisons that are around me, obviously they don't have a wife and kid to spend time with on a Saturday night. They don't have a wife and child they can go to on a Saturday night and spend their time with them. They want to be here with me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. They want to be here with me so they can listen to my program. Their wife and kid can wait. Okay, they can eat their pot roast and their salad and their grape juice and watch Blue's Clues by themselves. I don't want to be with my wife and kids tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I want to be with Emmanuel Isaiah Smith here in Doral, Florida, and I want to hear his program. My wife and kid can do without me tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to send a rip-off of The Ultimate Warrior to run past Mr. Smith in a way that is a little bit goofy and off. And we're going to cite being threatened by his discourse tonight as our reason for sending that animal down here. Let me say something real quick, okay? When it comes to these covert war mechanisms, okay? I said it in my first discourse. They're not rooted in anything noble. They're not rooted in anything notable. They're not rooted in anything ideal. Okay? And yes, the religious establishment jumps into this. Okay? Don't think for 1 second that the religious establishment in this country does not want a piece of all of these technologies so it can use it on the population. Okay? Religious communities, particularly in the United States, I'm going to say, I'm not from any other country, so I don't know how the religious establishment is in other countries. But here in the United States, the religious establishment here would jump at the opportunity to get at some of this technology. Okay, so that it can punish sinners or punish people who forget to pay their tithe, or punish that young couple who decided to make love before their wedding day was official, or punish that couple who had a child out of wedlock. How dare they? Or punish that guy who refused to read his scriptures, or punish that guy who refused to go to Sunday school, or punish that woman who refused to bake a cake for the church picnic. Okay? We could get together as a church, right? The upper echelons of the church, and maybe we could talk to some of our members who are in the Air Force. Maybe some of the upper echelons of this church, maybe we could get together with some of our members who are in the CIA. Some of the good ones, you know, some of the good CIA congregants who pay tithe and are good to us and things like people who pray every night. Let's get with some of our members of this church that are in the Department of Justice and in the Department of Defense. Let's get with some of the members of our church who have access to something like Tempest or extremely low frequency. Or maybe we could get together with some of our Department of Defense members who have access to personnel mobilization. And we can use it to go from city to city and town to town and punish sinners. Okay? That's part of what gang stalking is. Part of it is made to look like divine retribution against a person. Okay? Part of gang stalking is designed to look like God himself has come to earth and is invisibly punishing this person, this man, this woman, this child, that child, for doing this or that, or not doing this or that. A lot of gang stalking is a church, namely a very powerful church, perhaps an international church, who has members in the Department of Defense and in the Department of Justice getting together and finding a way to play God. That's part of what gang stalking is. And unfortunately, the U.S. government, because it is incapable of the separation of church and state, which is a constitutional precept, it allows churches to infiltrate its legislative process and use programs like this to play God. You're not going to play God with me, because I know you're not God. As a matter of fact, with the Gang Stalking in Action video program, I've identified you personally. And no, you're not God. I can assure you of that. You ain't created me. That I can promise you. And you're not the administrator of my destiny either. I am. So, let's talk a little bit about Tempest. And as of right now, we are in part 4 of this lecture, the ideal population and the technology used to achieve that population. Tempest is a classified program focused on preventing adversaries from intercepting and deciphering classified or sensitive information transmitted by devices. So, in other words, Tempest is a software that makes it difficult or impossible for a third party to access top secret information from governments. Now, all right, now I just had somebody pass me that was very pleasant. Okay, perhaps that's making up for the previous mishap. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. If you are sending people past me in synchronous fashions, I appreciate it if they're pleasant. It will probably make me more pleasant as well. 25 years of gang stalking can make you a little irritable at sometimes. So, have a brilliant day and have a brilliant weekend. So essentially, what was figured out by our government, and mind you, our government gets some things right. There were especially through DARPA, which is basically the government's own. It's probably DARPA is probably, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but DARPA is a government agency that is probably the most intensive agency in the country with respect to analyzing data and coming up with inventions. Okay? And some of these inventions the ideas for these inventions are sold to companies for use by consumers. So for example, Tempest is basically a software that makes it impossible to steal data from phones and computers because of the radiation they emit. So for example, cellular towers, cell phones, computer networks, routers, all of these gadgets that you use to connect to the internet and use data, they all emit radiation. Not enough radiation to harm a person, unless this radiation is amplified and aimed directly at the person using a ray gun or something. But there is enough of your data in this radiation that a third party can pick it up and read the data. Tempest is a software that makes it impossible to read that data. So for example, let's say there are classified CIA documents or top secret Department of Defense or Department of Justice documents. Let's say a Secret Service agent has classified information on his BlackBerry, on his work issued BlackBerry. So if that Secret Service agent sends a text message to somebody, that text message can be intercepted by a third party because cell phones can be hacked. Now, in order to protect that Secret Service agent's phone and his information, a program like Tempest might be used and installed on his phone so that when he sends a message, when he makes a phone call, when he browses the internet, when he sends an email, that data, that information cannot be intercepted. So Tempest is a good thing because it allows classified or top secret information to remain safe. Stingray devices are interesting to me too because of how easily they can be used to track a person's location. So we know what cellular towers are. We know what cellular towers are. And we know that a person's location can be accessed through the reading of cellular data that's sent and received between your cell phone and a cellular tower. Now, stingrays are interesting because they mimic cellular towers. It's like a portable cellular tower that a person could put in their car. And you can basically do something like you can type in somebody's phone number or their IP address or other identifying information, and it will tell you that person's exact location right there on the spot in real time. Stingray devices, also known as cell site simulators, are surveillance tools used by third parties to locate and track cell phones. These devices work by mimicking cell phone towers, forcing nearby phones to connect to them. This allows third parties to identify the phones and their locations. Stingrays broadcast a strong signal, causing nearby cell phones to disconnect from legitimate cell towers and connect to the stingray instead. By analyzing signals received by the stingray, third parties can pinpoint the location of the target phone. Some stingray models have the capacity to collect additional information like the phone's unique identifier, the IMSI, and even the content of communications. So, a stingray device, in addition to what I've described for you, can make it so that your cell phone, which is constantly connected to one tower or another. For example, if you're say a Verizon wireless customer, your phone is constantly connected to Verizon towers in the area. However, if you go outside the range of a Verizon tower and your phone is picked up, say, by an AT&T tower, you can still use your Verizon service. It's just called roaming because you're using a competitor's tower to make the call because you're out of the range of a Verizon tower. Stingrays act as a second tower, okay? So if you're, for example, on your carrier's tower or on your carrier's network with your phone and you're driving down the street and someone with a Stingray device taps into your phone with it, now your phone is connected to the Stingray device to make its calls and text messages rather than the carrier's tower. So your phone is no longer communicating using the carrier's tower, the cell phone carrier's tower. It's communicating using this cellular device called a Stingray, which is basically intercepting all your calls, all your texts, all your information, everything. Imagine if a Stingray device fell into the hands of an ignorant or hostile person. How much damage to your life a person with a Stingray device could do if they decided to target you with a Stingray device? What if this person decided to target your wife and children with the Stingray device? Your mother, your father, your cousins. Taking a Stingray device and basically causing your phone to use the Stingray device as a cellular tower rather than your phone carrier cellular tower. So now, whoever has control of this Stingray it's connected to your phone and connected to your family's phones. And every call you make, every email you send, every text message you send is going through a Stingray device instead of your carrier cellular towers. And you'll never know it because you could call your wife and you would be using a Stingray device's cellular communication and not even know it. And your wife would pick up and you and your wife could have a conversation about anything. Anything. And the person operating the Stingray device would be able to hear the entire phone call right from the comfort of his car or living room. Imagine if a Stingray device fell into the wrong hands. Okay, we're going to move down to POGO, which is the Project on Government Oversight. The project on government oversight is a program that they're basically a grassroots political action program that is a watchdog group for government corruption. I don't know how useful they are because, quite frankly, I've never heard of them, and you've probably never heard of them either. So they call themselves the Project on Government Oversight, and they're an anti-government corruption watchdog group. Now, I commend anybody who is in favor of government oversight, because a government should be watched by its citizens. The government should be watched by companies. A government should be watched by its news media to ensure that that government is running up to speed and is running according to the law. So if this program, the Project on Government Oversight, is legit, okay, my hat's off to you, because you are in favor of ethical government. My recommendation to you as a political watchdog group is to make yourself more noticeable. Okay, so the people have a better idea of what your aims are and what you plan to do about clandestine gang stalking. This is another one that's real interesting to me. It's called Sentient World Simulation, and essentially what it is it's basically, so it's a digitized program that essentially analyzes everything. Okay, now let me stop there. When I say that Sentient World Simulation analyzes everything, I mean that Sentient World Simulation analyzes everything. There is nothing under the sun in the past or the present that Sentient World Simulation has not analyzed. Its goal is to aggregate human history, all human behavior, all human tendencies, every purchasing behavior, every company, every government, every military, every religion, and everything that's ever been done or said in the history of mankind. That's what Sentient World Simulation is designed to do. Analyze everything and come up with a conclusion as to what everything means. And I'm sure that if population control ever became an official policy in this country, World Sentient Simulation would be contacted or consulted about that, because it essentially is designed to predict the behaviors of humans, companies, and governments before they act. Okay, it is designed to predict the actions and the motivations of people, companies, and governments before they act. It is designed to predict what people, companies, and governments are going to do. Okay, now and in the future. It is an extremely data-intensive program that is supposed to be almost an all-seeing eye into what it is to be a citizen of planet Earth, really. You got neuro-linguistic programming, which is a psychological approach that studies how language and perception impact behavior. It aims to help people change their thoughts and behaviors by analyzing the strategies of successful individuals and applying them to personal goals. Neuro-linguistic programming is used for personal development, phobias, anxiety, workplace performance, and personal happiness. Here are some key ideas of neuro-linguistic programming: internal maps, logical levels, mirroring, and a technique called swish. Internal maps are basically people creating internal maps of the world through sensory experiences. Logical levels is a theory that states that logical levels are organized so changing a lower level can impact higher levels. Mirroring is basically copying someone's body language and vocabulary so that you can be more like that other person. mirroring is it's an espionage tactic that allows a person to basically relay how another person is. So let's say I were to pay somebody $1,000 and tell them, you know what? I want to know more about John Doe. Go out and find out some information about him and come back. So I pay the person the money and they go out and start spying on you. What they might do is they might start mimicking you. They might mimic the way you dress, mimic the way you talk, mimic the way you walk, mimic the way you eat, mimic the way you sit, mimic the way you smell, mimic how you go about your business, mimic how you act, mimic how you interact with other people. They're going to mimic everything about you, and then they are going to come back to me and act out, almost like a stage performance, how you act. You hear me? You have synthetic telepathy, which is basically, it's kind of like brain-computer interface, where a person can connect their electrical impulses in their brain. We'll call those cerebral electrical impulses. And these impulses will allow for the controlling of electronic devices using nothing but your thoughts. Okay, this technology is already out there. It's not being sold to people, although it will be at some point in the future. Yes, at one time you will be able to purchase a device that will allow you to change the channel on your television set using your thoughts. Okay, there will one day be a program that will allow you to play a game of chess on a computer using nothing but your thoughts. You'll be able to one day play a video game on your home television set using nothing but your thoughts. These types of things are already being experimented with. It's very popular in China right now, and there's some of that here in the United States as well. It's very sophisticated technology that manipulates brain waves and allows basically a machine to grab your electrical impulses that your brain sends off, and essentially you can basically connect to this digitized program using nothing but your brain waves and interact with it. Let's see. All right, here's what we'll do. We will cover. We're on the home stretch here. We're in the last 10 or so definitions. We're going to do no-touch torture, and we're going to do beast system, and then we're going to conclude today's lecture, and tomorrow we'll do the next part. So, no-touch torture is also known as psychological torture. This is something that many targeted individuals, at least people who allege to be targeted individuals, this is something that they allege that they experience. Okay, no-touch torture or touchless torture by whoever their liaisons are. And essentially, I mean, me personally, look, I'm a 6'5", 200-something odd pound man. I'm a former athlete. I was raised in religious traditions. I'm a student of history. I'm a student of psychology. I'm a student of politics. I'm a student of a lot of things. Okay? I'm not a terribly psychologically shaky man, and I'm not a fearful man either. So, if I am experiencing this no-touch torture stuff, it's probably not having the same effect on me as it would someone who has not had the experiences I've had, or someone who does not have the physical stature that I have. So no-touch torture is described as psychological torture, and it is the intentional infliction of mental suffering without using direct physical violence. It aims to break down an individual's will and identity through various methods which can have severe and long-lasting psychological and physical effects. The key aspects of no-touch torture focus on mental harm instead of physical harm or physical injury. It targets the victim's psychological well-being, aiming to induce fear, despair, confusion, or a sense of helplessness. I attribute street theater personally to a lot of that. Street theater is designed to make a person feel unstable or less than ideal. And I'll stop it there for now. Variety of techniques of touchless torture can include sensory manipulation, such as prolonged sensory deprivation, hooding, blindfolding, extreme isolation, or sensory overload, loud noises, sudden bright lights, sudden loud booms and crackles and things like that to make the target jump or look, I guess, frightened or something. Psychological manipulation, including threats, humiliation, mock executions, exploitation of phobias, isolation, sleep deprivation, and creating a sense of total helplessness. I think all these things are fairly self-explanatory if you know the basics of gang-stalking. A targeted individual can be mocked using street theater. For example, let's say you're a targeted individual who's newly divorced. Okay, you might often see street theater of the perfect families just happen to walk past you all happy and wonderful, or maybe you're somewhere reading a book or something and then the perfect ideal image of a father and son just happen to come waltzing past you and they look so bright and happy. Or the perfect ideal husband and wife out for a romantic evening. They're dressed to the nines. They look good. They smell good. They're hugging. They're kissing. Okay, they're doing whatever right in front of you. Okay, these are street theater tactics to make a newly divorced targeted individual, or maybe a single targeted individual, feel like they are less than this couple that has just walked past them. However, they don't know that this couple has been signaled to their exact location by a federal liaison for no reason other than to make the target feel jealous or less than. Let that sink in for a second, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, street theater is used to make a person feel like their life is not up to par with the lives of the people around them. And sometimes people's happiness or their wealth or their future or their physical fitness or their health, sometimes these things are flaunted right in front of a targeted individual using a signaling mechanism so that that targeted individual feels like less than these people, so it can be basically implanted in a targeted individual's mind. Look at these wonderful people we have working for us and compare them to you. We gang stalkers, we have people working for us that put you, the targeted individual, to shame. Well, we'll see how much shame is passed around when Congress has to get on its knees and beg the American people for forgiveness for putting this monstrous Leviathan into play in the first place. All right, we are going to conclude this part with the beast system. This is an interesting topic here because it combines religious elements which are a part of gang stalking. The term beast system generally refers to a concept found in religious, well, it says religious or conspiracy context, but I'm going to leave the word conspiracy out because the word conspiracy, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Because quite frankly, every conspiracy that I've ever looked into has turned out to be true. So the word conspiracy theory, all that is to me at this point is just a way to discredit the truth that you don't want to get out. So if you don't want the truth, if you don't want the unseen truth, or as some people call it, the inconvenient truth, to get out, just call it a conspiracy theory. Just call it a conspiracy, and that will diffuse interest in it for a while until people find out it's not a conspiracy theory. Then they're going to start asking you questions. So I say diffuse the whole thing and just tell the truth in the first place, and you won't have to call people conspiratologists and all that stuff. So the term beast system refers to a concept found in religious or conspiracy theory context, describing a powerful controlling system that opposes God and seeks to dominate humanity. It's frequently associated with the end-time prophecies and figures like the Antichrist. Here's a breakdown of the different ways that the term is used. Religious interpretation, namely in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it talks about the beast, which is a symbolic figure representing a powerful, oppressive, political, or worldly power that opposes God. It's often linked to the Antichrist and a system of control that seeks to enforce allegiance through economic and social mechanisms. The number 666 is often associated with the beast and is interpreted in various ways, sometimes suggesting incompleteness or an attempt to imitate God. And number 2, we have what this particular article refers to as the conspiracy theory interpretation. In some conspiracy theories, the beast system refers to a hidden global network of powerful individuals or organizations that secretly control world events. This system is seen as orchestrating events like pandemics, economic crisis, political instability to further its agenda of global domination. It is also depicted as using technology, surveillance, and social engineering to control the population. Now, I'm going to break this down for you fairly quickly because the beast system, it's presented in an interesting context here. It almost sounds like a computer network or some kind of a technology software or some sort of a telecommunications network that can control populations. But ultimately the beast in the Bible, when you talk about the beast or the Antichrist or 666, okay, so all of this was written by the Apostle John, who in the Catholic tradition is called Saint John, and in the Baptist tradition he's called John the Revelator. But most Protestants just call him the Apostle John, or simply John. He wrote the book of Revelation about 25 years after Christ's ascension, as he was incarcerated on the Greek island of Patmos. And the reason he was incarcerated is because he was incarcerated by the Roman Empire for preaching that Christ was the Son of God, which is considered blasphemy to the Romans, because the Romans worship their emperor as the Son of God. As a matter of fact, one of the Roman emperor's titles is Filius Dei, Son of God. So for Christ to be the Son of God means to diminish the emperor. So St. John preaching that Christ was the Son of God, it diminished the emperor who held the Filius Dei title as the Son of God. So he was incarcerated for sedition for life on Patmos. So this was written in about AD 55, about 25 years after the death of Christ, or the ascension of Christ. And basically the beast that St. John is referring to, the Antichrist, this 666, he's talking about Emperor Nero. Okay? The book of Revelation has to be read from a historical context. I think a lot of Christian commentators get carried away with the book of Revelation, and they start talking about the end times and the apocalypse and how God is going to start raining fire from heaven, and how 5 million frogs are going to jump out of the ocean and consume everybody, and how killer robots are going to come down from UFOs and start wreaking havoc, and aliens are going to start pulling up in spaceships and blowing up planet Earth because of all this stuff that's happening in Revelation. These are interpretations, okay? They're interpretations. Everyone has their interpretation of what the imagery in Revelation means. All the Apostle John is talking about with respect to the beast and the Antichrist is Emperor Nero, who was the emperor of Rome at the time of his incarceration, okay? And the reason, and mind you, the 666, okay, is reported in the Bible as 603, the number of the beast. It's simply a code word. 666 is a numerological code word for Nero. Okay? And that's who the subject of the Antichrist talk is. Now, when it talks about the whore of Babylon that sits on top of 7 mountains, he's talking about Rome. Some people think, oh, he's talking about America.